Hello everybody and welcome to another top 5 board gaming video. Today's topic is all about games that have a relatively low requirement for language. So this is something that I don't see discussed too much, but it's vitally important as far as the board gaming community inclusivity. So one of the issues that we see with a lot of board games, especially heavier ones, is that we'll see a ton of components that have just walls and walls of text, and some of it is confusing and contradictory and ridiculous and all this kind of stuff. So I wanted to pick some games that I really enjoy, that are really fun, but don't actually have any real text on any of the game components. The only thing that these games require is that you have somebody explain how to play the game, and that's it. So like I said, this is mostly about inclusivity. This is about people who don't necessarily speak the same language being able to play the exact same game at the same time. It's about people who might not necessarily have great reading skills, especially younger children, getting them involved in games early on in childhood, all of that kind of stuff. And these are great games that can do that. But that said, as always, I'm curious what you all have to say. What do you guys think about language requirements in general for board games? And what are your favorites that have a low level of requirement? Let me know what you think in the comments below, because you know I love to hear all of it. But that said, we're going to get started with my number 5. At number 5, I've got Azul. In addition to being a game that is absolutely aesthetically gorgeous, this is also a game that has a very simple premise as far as what you're trying to do, which is just fill out a particular tile area on your board. There is some language dependency in terms of there's numbers and a little bit of math and things like that, which is why it's a little bit lower on the list, or why it's at the bottom of the list. But even so, the game itself is so wonderful and easy to play and easy to teach and easy to learn, not to mention looking so beautiful, that it is a wonderful way to introduce people who aren't necessarily super comfortable with board games into the hobby. Azul, my number 5. At number 4, I've got Splendor. I personally am not the biggest fan of Splendor, but the fact is that it is a dead simple game to play. You have some coins of different colors, you have some little tiles that match those different color coins, and you can see exactly what you get, exactly what things cost, and you can see the sort of minor engine building mechanic building up there. It's great because it's a wonderful introduction to how to perform engine building, very easy again to teach and learn. I prefer it without the expansion for the purpose of language independence, because the expansion cities adds a little bit more complexity in that respect. But the fact is that the base game by itself, again, you're just looking at some very basic numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, that type of thing. So it's very easy even for early and basic learners. So Splendor, my number 4. At number 3, I've got Dimension, and frankly, it should probably be lower on the list, but because of who I am and how my brain works, I absolutely adore it too much. This is a logical reasoning game where you're given a set of rules and have to build a pyramid made up of colored balls. Essentially, each individual card indicates a specific rule. For example, 2 balls of the same color can't touch, 2 balls of the same color must touch. You have to have some specific number of a specific type of ball, all sorts of different stuff like that. But again, there's no language involved because it's all depicted in pictures on these particular cards as to what the rules are. Again, though, it is a relatively complicated game as far as the logical reasoning behind it is concerned. But that said, round by round, you're supposed to use a timer for it, especially if you're playing with kids or younger kids especially. You can potentially get rid of the timer and just see if they can figure out a way to solve the puzzle. It's a great way to introduce logical reasoning and critical thinking for kids. And again, no language needed. Dimension, my number 3. At number 2, I have more of a category, which is dexterity-based games. So these will include things like Flick 'em Up and Clink Hole and Tumbling Dice to a certain extent at least, where the entire point is that you need to be precise with how you're throwing the dice or the discs or flicking them or whatever it is that you're doing. And so not only do we have complete language independence because it's just use this, hit that, boom. That's all it is, very simple. You also have the ability to gain finer motor skills and things like that, because it's a matter of, do I flick like this or do I flick like that, and that sort of thing. And so it's great, again, for especially early childhood development and things along those lines. But as far as language independence, you absolutely have that. Not to mention, a lot of dexterity games have some really nice looking just sort of stuff associated. So all of the different components look great because you're going to have components moving around and going all over the place. So you've got a lot of cool stuff associated with them. And that's why overall dexterity games are my number 2. At number 1, I've got Dixit. This game and I have kind of a tumultuous relationship where I don't particularly enjoy it, but for this particular category, it really deserves the number 1 spot. The fact is that no components in this game have any language on them aside from the rule book, and there's a little score tracker that just has numbers of points that you've got. And the idea is that you just have cards with pictures, somebody says something, and then everybody tries to get a card that matches that particular thing, and then people vote on which one is best. That's all it is. That is the crux of the game. The images are so fantastical and whimsical and wonderfully, ridiculously beautiful that it fosters a lot of creativity and just plain fun at the table. Again, especially when you're thinking about younger kids and things of that nature, where you know, you want to make it so that people can think and dream and believe and all of that sort of thing. But the fact is that you need very, very little language interaction with the components themselves. The only issues come up where you have particular language idioms and things like that that people might not necessarily get. But either way, Dixit definitely deserving of the number 1 spot. Well, everybody, that's going to be it for me. I hope that you enjoyed this video on my top 5 favorite games that are relatively language independent. Now, again, I'm looking at this with respect to the actual components, meaning that you don't have cards that you have to read where you've got, you know, round by round, here's what you do, here's how you do it, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. This is more of just, you can look at pictures on a card, you can look at different components and know what they mean right off the bat. You can look at your board and see what your goals are, that sort of thing. It's all about the visual aspect. Now, this is a little bit different from the actual artistic aspect, although that is certainly in a lot of these games. But again, it's a very, very important thing, and I hope that we as a community can keep fostering these types of games for inclusivity's sake, so that we can get more and more people playing more and more board games, because I would love, love, love to see that. Of course, as always, let me know what your favorites are in the comments below, as well as your opinions on language independence in games in general. Do you think that it's something that's great to have, that it's okay to have? Is it something you have to be in the mood for as far as a particular game type? Boom, put it down there. You guys know I love to hear it all. Of course, as always, if you haven't done so already, please take a look at my social media pages where you can interact with myself and my channel in a whole bunch of really fun ways. And for those of you who are still in quarantine, if any of you are, please stay safe, please stay inside. We will get through this eventually. It will happen, hopefully sooner rather than later. But all we can do is wait, buckle down, and stick together. Thank you very much again for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.